Hello and welcome to my watch reviews. Well, I'm here with possibly one of the best releases from San Martin in 2023. Here we have the SN0129 GMT, and it's all about the dial on this one. It's called the sand dune dial, or the desert dial, and doesn't it have all the hallmarks of a nod to Grand Seiko? I certainly think it is. So in this video I'm going to go through every aspect. We're going to look at that dial under the microscope, take a look at the movement, talk about the pros and cons of ownership of this one. So stick around and we'll crack on, starting right now. If you're new to the channel, and I'm thinking some of you might be watching this particular video, I do most of the review work outside. I think filming a watch outside gives it its best appearance in natural light, so it's hiding no prisoners. Now this one is extremely reflective, and as a result this is actually what it looks like if I'm not trying to diffuse the image from the direct light itself. So bear with me if the hands look a little bit dark and shadowy in places. It's just because of the angles I've got to try and get to show off that dial, because you're here because you want to see that dial, I'm sure of it. It is quite stunning and it changes in different angles, so we're going to start looking at those angles right away. So let's start with the outside and work our way in. If we look at the bezel, you can see it's got a lovely linear finishing. It's just pure stainless steel, that one, and it's got engraved the 24-hour scale. The bezel is completely static, so you can track one time zone, but if it was actually a turning bezel, which I think a lot of people would have preferred, then in theory of course you can actually measure 3 time zones as a result. Yes, it is a GMT. I guess we're going to know the movement is inside this one. It is the NH34 typically. More on that a little bit later. I love it's got a chapter ring. I always think a chapter ring adds a lot of detail to a watch. It sort of just grades you into the dial ever so slightly. And then just look at those indices. Each one is highly polished, and each one has got a little facet or a taper at the end pointing into the dial there. And it's little details like that, and I think go a long way. I didn't notice that at first until I started looking closely. And then of course they are filled with white loom, which has been done again to a very high standard. There's the obligatory date window at 3 o'clock. I'd prefer to see that, to be honest. It is the NH34 movement, and the movement does come with that complication, and rather than cover it up and give a ghost position, I think offering it as a date window is better. However, look at that handset. The handset to me is the real sweet spot. They are flat hands, highly polished. I don't think there's a name for them. I like the way they taper towards the center there. The GMT hand, again, it's just polished, it's straightforward, it's easily legible, but it's not in your face, it's not a different color. The second hand, again, I love it. I love the heel at the back, and then obviously the red accent at the top. It just matches the GMT text on the dial perfectly. Again, well thought out, really cannot fault it in that regard at all. I still think you're going to be looking at the dial at this angle. You can see here, you can see it's got a little bit of texture. It is the dune dial, and I guess it's like a sand texture. So let's try and get a little bit closer and have a look at that. I promise you close up. So here we go, we're on the microscope, and we're going to get very close and personal on that dial right now. So here we go, pretty close up. You can see it's definitely got a sort of sandy texture, hasn't it? If you look at all those facets again, we're looking to see if we can see anything that just stands out, whether it be dust marks, scratches, imperfections, and I honestly can't really see anything at all. Let's get a little bit closer. It's sad that the light again is reflecting, so it makes the indices and things look black, but you can quite clearly see that this dial is well made. It's kind of a silvery texture actually, more than the white. All very, very well made, and makes for a great watch. However, it does have one slight flaw, and I'll show you that right now. This is how the watch looks on my 7-inch wrist, or 18 centimeters. All very nice. However, I'm having to diffuse it here from the glare of the sunshine, and that is what I think is part of the flaw. It is so shiny, this watch, that in normal lights, when I'm not covering it, it looks like this. And again, beautiful, just that little bit harder to read and a lot of glare. Now I can't detract it from it particularly, because again, take this watch inside, it's a real bling watch. It looks great indoors. I just thinking, you know, outdoor sunshine, it isn't so good, and that is potentially a little bit of a flaw. However, that is now going to be overcome by the fact that they're making more colorways of this watch, which I think is hardly surprising. This one is going to be a big seller, that's for sure. It is a great looking watch. Quick blast of the UV torch means it's lume shot time. BGW9, you can see it burns blue there. Time lapse over 20 minutes, and it performed very well. I think if the second hand had a little bit of lume on it would be even better, but perfectly adequate for your night requirements. I can never say anything bad about San Martin finishing, but this one's got some really nice features. So you've got a contrast, of course, of brushed and polished surfaces. I love that polished accent on the bevel of the bezel. Really, really cool. But inside the lugs there as well, little polished accents, which is just really good, and I'm sure that is very difficult to make. Here you can see all of those finishing meeting together. So the bracelet there is brushed on the outside links. The actual sides of the bracelet are highly polished. Again, those inside bits of those lugs, really, really good. Looks quite nice. I think you can see it again here in a little bit more detail. From the overhead shot you can see the bracelet, but we take our attention down to the clasp. This one that they use all the time now. It's got great finishing. I still would like to know how they put their logo on it in such detail, to be honest with you. Tip it to one side. There's no adjustment on this one because it's the new on the fly adjustment, which I'll show you in operation in just a moment. Here is the clasp underneath all that. It's a milled clasp, and that's not going to let you down, or it shouldn't at least. Here's the clasp in operation. It says push. You just push that and you can push the links in. I think it takes about a link roughly, looking at the adjustment that you've got there. So pretty decent, certainly for when your wrist might swell in the heat and things like that. I said at the start that I'd show you all angles of this watch, so here we are at the sides, and you've got a nice sign crown. Love the crown guards and that polished accent above the top. Turn it to the other side and it's just nice uniform brushing and polishing. Let's turn our attention to the case back, and what has San Martin given us? Haven't given us anything, have they really? I mean, it's all well done and nice, but this is very traditional San Martin now, completely and utterly sterile, which doesn't sit that well with me, but I know it does for many of you, and that's what matters. The all important sizing. So we are looking here at a diameter, if I can get the vernier on, at 40 millimeters. So right on the cusp for me. Don't want anything much bigger than that, to be honest with you. Thickness 13.2. What is the lug to lug? Well, that's going to be a very pleasing 46.4. So yeah, it's going to conform to lots of wrists. Hard to do the lug measurement, but we know it is 20 millimeters if you wanted to put this one on a strap. Watch houses the Seiko NH34. Each segment here on the time grapher is over 2 minutes long, and so far it isn't performing as good as I would like. The rate is, well, it's a bit better in dial down position, but it still isn't perfect, and the beat error I'm not entirely happy with. Let's try the stress positions. This is crown up. See a lot more beat error, but that's normally expected, and that rate is still consistent in the fact that this watch is running a little fast. What's it going to be like with pendant down, I wonder? Well, funny enough, it tidies itself up a little bit, but I'm not too convinced. They're never great out the packet. Sometimes they're hit and miss. Let's stick it on the microscope, have a closer look. And here might be the reason why some of the readings weren't so good. The shock spring is just a little bit out of position. Not actually seen that before on an out the packet Seiko, but easily rectifiable, certainly by me there. What's also interesting is this little spring here. You can see that's just to push the movement down when you screw the case back on. I've not seen that before on a San Martin at all. And here you can see how winding the rotor actually winds the mainspring. It's called the magic fingers or the Paul levers, and when Seiko invented this was a revolution. It just simplified everything, less parts, less failures compared to the Swiss counterparts that were using very elaborate automatic works to wind the mainspring. If you've got this far into the video, then you're going to want to know the price. Here we go. It is £242. That is just under 300 US dollars. Now, is it worth it, that? Well, yes, in a way. However, we have got the 11/11 AliExpress sale coming up very soon, and I would expect this price here to drop significantly when that comes into fruition. So stay tuned for that. Bookmark the page, all the rest of it. If you're after one of these, wait for the sales. It is not that far away at all. Here we are back at the bench, and what are my final thoughts on this watch? Well, I think San Martin have knocked it out the park pretty much. This one is getting a lot of attention on social media, whether it be my posts or other people's posts. Clearly, a lot of people want it, and the design is really cool. It's all about that dial without question, and it's great, definitely. So yes, it's a good watch. However, I still think there's a couple of negatives. The first one is the high polished center links on the bracelet. I'm not too keen on those. I think it is just that little bit too flash, and of course anything that's been highly polished will eventually scratch, and then it's not going to look as appealing. Perhaps an all brushed bracelet is, you know, a bit more contemporary nowadays and a bit more harder wearing, of course. Perhaps even one of those beads of rice bracelets that I've seen on some San Martin watches recently as well. So there are changes that could be made to sort of slightly improve it at least. And then the main gripe that I've got is just the legibility. I just think that in bright light there is too much reflection. You've got the stainless steel bezel along with that sort of silvery white dial that's reflecting back at you, the highly polished hands as well, and all of that contributes to the fact that at a glance in the sunshine or in bright light you're going to struggle. There's no doubt you're going to struggle to read it. And what do we wear a watch for, really? To tell the time. So that, I don't know how you could improve it. Perhaps on those other dial colours, the ones that are going to be a little bit darker or a bit different, the hands will stand out more and I wouldn't have that complaint. But yeah, it's going to sell really, really well, come what may anyway. Now, if you do want to pick one of these up, there is a link down below. We have got the AliExpress sale coming up on the November the 11th. This is the big sale of the year, and San Martin do take part in it and slash their prices dramatically. So this one is, what, £240, which is just under $300 as I speak now, and I was expecting that to probably come down a lot more come the sales. So if you want to pick one of these up, or you want to pick something up and you want to help me and the channel grow, then please click the link below, buy from my link. I get a small kickback, you get the watch at the same price. Everybody's a winner, and it does help this channel because this channel is still very, very small. So again, you know, if you've enjoyed the review, hit the like button, definitely hit the subscribe button, comment below because I do read every comment and I do reply to as many as I can. Now, I have got another San Martin to review, which is going to come out again before the sales, because you might be interested in that one. It is supposed to be their own design as well, so stay tuned for that. Now, you can see I'm sitting by my watch bench. I am a hobbyist watchmaker. I've been doing watchmaking videos for over 6 years now on YouTube on the main channel, My Retro Watches. So if you want to get incentivized, or you know, have a go at watchmaking yourself, then perhaps go and check out my other channel and look at all the videos I've made on there. There's a heck of a lot. I've got tutorials, I've got restorations, I've got everything really. So go and check that one, see what you think. You never know, this time next year you might have a desk like this full of tools having a go yourself. Plenty more to come soon, so I will see you soon in the next video. Bye for now.